So hi there, my name is Mark, and I am a developer that runs a very small software company. And I'm making this video because I am going to be hopefully bravely exploring the world of advertising. I'm an engineer by trade. I actually don't like advertising, not because of some fundamental grounds, but I don't like it because I'm not good at it. And I'm old enough now to realize that you can't spend your whole life doing something you're not good at. But in this particular case, I have to get good at it. So why are you watching this video? What is this going to do? Well, I had a once successful software product called FormBoss, which is now called RackForms. And by once successful, I mean I enjoyed, and I was lucky to, really good ranking on Google search for what this software does, which meant that I had a lot of visitors to my site and a lot of sales. I unfortunately lost that traffic in 2011 because of a Google penalty, as we call it. So Google basically saw a bunch of links pointing to my site. I had nothing to do with them, but that didn't change the fact that Google said, well, you should be penalized for that. And I went from a page 1 ranking, usually in the first 3 slots, to page like 40 or lower. And it just, my business blew up, basically. Luckily, I don't have employees. We're a family business, so it's not like the company went anywhere, but the sales and the users certainly did. And that's a pain in the butt, and I've never given up, and I never will give up. I'd like to get back to that point where I'm growing again. Right now, I think it's fair to say that I'm in a bit of a holding pattern. I get some sales occasionally, but it is almost by luck sometimes, I think. And that's because it's really hard to find me. So as anybody in advertising will tell you, if you don't advertise, if you're not a known quantity to some user, you'll never grow. And of course, that makes sense. How would somebody know to buy RackForms if they don't know about RackForms as a possibility? Again, I used to enjoy a good amount of organic search traffic. That's all gone. In 2011, it has slightly come back now, but not to the point where I can be successful. So as a quick demonstration of that, if you search for PHP Web Form software, which is literally what my company does, you can see here that I'm on the first page. And by the way, after my penalty, you can't understand how nice that feels. Unfortunately, in the time that my first penalty hit to right now, it seems like our usage has changed a lot. And basically, people only click on the first 3 links. I've read somewhere that 80% of all clicks on Google happen within these first 3 slots. And so even though I'm only sitting down at 5 or 6 right here, it just unfortunately doesn't mean anything. And by the way, that's just one search term. If you maybe modify that a little bit to be web form software, which is also very accurately describes me, you'll see here that, well, okay, that's not actually accurate. That's something called the search bubble. Let me try to get out of that bubble for a second. If you search for something where I'm not in my search bubble, you can see here that if you search for what I do, I am, on page 2 here. And by the way, we're going to talk about all this stuff like search bubble, all that stuff later on. But anyway, long story short, I am at a place now where the search ranking is something that I used to be able to rely on but can no longer do so. And therefore, my business has stagnated because I'm just not able to attract new users. Nobody knows about me. I have tried advertising in the past, but unfortunately it hasn't worked for me. But I realize now that instead of retreating into the shell of development, which is what I usually do, in other words, I just keep trying to add new features to my software and all that stuff in some hopes that it's like the dumbest thing ever. It's like, I think only engineers will understand this, but when you're really good at writing software, or at least I hope I'm good at writing software, if you're not good at something else like marketing, you will have a tendency to just do the thing that you're good at. So every time that a marketing challenge comes up or some way of promoting myself, I try a little bit, I get frustrated because I'm not good at it, and I just say, well, you know what, screw this. I'm just going to build a cool new feature in RackForms, and then that will get people excited. But the only thing that does is just reward my existing users, which I love to do, and that makes me super happy, which is why I do it, but it doesn't help me grow my business. So anyway, long story short, you need to do something about that. So first off, let's talk a little bit about the problem, or I should say, let's continue talking about the problem. So problem number 1 is I don't rank high anymore, and This is really deceptive right here that I'm on page 1 for this, because again, as we just saw, there's something called the search bubble. So if you're on your local machine and you search for your own website and you click on your link, Google will just see, and rightfully so, that, hey, you've clicked on this link before, so we should probably rank it a little bit higher so you don't have to look for it the next time you go to it. And so because I've clicked on RackForms.com, because that's my website, it ranks me artificially high. To see what my actual ranking is in aggregate, we use something like the Google Webmaster Tools Search Console here, where we can actually see that my general position is much closer to the 30s. So this is why I don't get a lot of business anymore, is because my average search position is 1.5 pages into search results. And as we just talked about, only people that rank in the first 80 right here are essentially going to have any traffic from Google. If you're on, the 5th or 6th slot, you might get a few occasional clicks. If you're on the second page, forget about it. So this is why I'm having so many problems. Now, the reason why I still have hope is that if we actually look at impressions, there is a massive disparity between the number of clicks I get in impressions. Actually, let me reformulate this as clicks in impressions. There's, over the last month, 27,000 impressions for the various keywords that describe possibly my website, yet only 480 clicks. And as you can see right here, the vast majority of clicks that I get is actually from just direct website clicks. So in other words, you already know about RackForms, so you type in RackForms as a search term, and then you just go to my website. If you're actually searching for what I do, like the type of query that would bring in a new user, it's far, far less. So Web Form Builder software, over the last month, 7 searches. Yet there's been 700 impressions. So a lot of people have searched for that term, but because I rank so low, I get almost no clicks. So that delta is what gives me hope. If I can get more clicks, I can get more business, because there's still business out there to be had. It's not to say that I don't have more competitors. I started my company back in 2007. There are clearly more competitors now than there were back then. But I still think that I make the best product. So I think that if I can get you to my website, I can win you over. Here's the big problem, though. Before my penalty back in 2011, and we'll do a video where we talk about the penalty in a little bit more detail, but before my penalty, I was doing usually 2 or 3 sales a day, which for a single developer was incredible. But I was doing those 2 or 3 sales a day off of about 100 clicks per day. Right now, as you can see, I'm getting an average of 20 clicks per day. In some days, like the end of November here, I got 9 clicks. Anything lower than 100 clicks per day means that the business is going to be very difficult to run, right? I need, so let's say you have 100 visitors come to your website, and do this for your own business. If you're thinking about your business, think of things in this way. If you have 100 visitors come to your website, maybe half of them are going to be ready to buy that day. Of those 50 that are left, maybe your price is going to be right. So now you're down to 25 visitors, right? It's a funnel that you're going down into. Of those 25 visitors that are left, maybe half of them don't like the language that you've written this in. So I've written this in PHP. It's technical, don't worry about it, but I've written this in PHP. Maybe they're ASP.NET people. So now you're down to 10 users or less. And of those 10 users, maybe only half of those are ready to buy this week or anytime soon. Maybe they're just looking for stuff. And so you can see here, this funnel keeps narrowing down the number of potential users that you have. It just so happens that in my experience, and by the way, that's not even mentioned competition. Maybe these people saw your website, they're ready to buy, it's the right language, it's everything, but you don't have the features that you want. Or maybe the other website had a better sales pitch, so they went with them. Super, super narrow that funnel gets. But I found, though, that as long as I had that 100 potential customers per day, 100 people in my storefront every day, that was enough to get those 1 or 2 sales per day. If you have 20 visitors, though, 26, and by the way, who knows how many of these were actually just searching for, again, just RackForms. You can see here that's one of the biggest queries I get. Now the funnel just doesn't make sense anymore. It's literally impossible to get a business running on this. You still get sales, they're very occasional and rare, but it's not enough to sustain what I want to do, and it's certainly not enough to grow. So that's a challenge. Keep that number in mind. 100 visitors per day was about what I needed to get to do this. Now, to that end then, as I said, in the funnel, you keep narrowing down the number of potential users that you have. So let's talk about the funnel. So any smart business person, I like to think I'm not an idiot, any smart business person is going to do what they got to do to make that funnel wider. So there's fewer narrowing actions during that funneling process. And so one of them that I identified literally years ago was, well, what if you come onto my website and you just want something free? With the App Store mentality, as most folks like to call it, where everything is free or it's just an in-app purchase, it's really hard to sell software these days. I mean, let's be honest. I started my company when the iPhone was released. The iPhone and its App Store has completely changed the way software works. People expect stuff to be free. And so people like free versions. So that doesn't mean that I can't have that removed as an obstacle. And so I did. So I have a free version here. Now I've actually played around with different variations of this. We actually have right now a free version for WordPress users. So you actually go onto this page right here and it's, hey, if you're a WordPress user, we've got a free version for you. It's unlimited. I mean, if you're a WordPress user and you need a form solution, for the love of God, give RackForms a shot. I think it's a fantastic product. But we have this for you here. Now, there's also a free version of like not a WordPress plugin, but an actual standalone product. That exists too, but that's almost giving too much away. So I kind of change every now and then where I give away an entirely free standalone version and a free WordPress plugin, etc. But the idea here, of course, is that if you search for web form software and you come onto this website, you want people to feel good about themselves. I want to feel good about myself if I search for something and I go onto your website. And one of the best ways that you can do that is you can give me something, right? Everybody loves a free sample. And in this particular case, not only is this a free sample, this is a free full piece of software right here that you can use to build web forms with. And so in terms of my competitors and in terms of what I like as a person, I think this is a pretty awesome thing to do. Give away a free version. And you can see here, it's not hidden. This is a big old button that sits at the top of every web page that you go to. So there's that. Then there's also, okay, well, what if you don't want the free version, but you truly do want to purchase a version of the software? So that's where this comes in. So here we have our purchase options. In my particular field, and think about your field. What is the average price of your field? Is there a free version that you're competing with? Think about your competitors. I certainly have, and what I've come up with is this. Most folks that I'm competing with have their software priced between $30 and $60. RackForms is a different beast entirely. When I actually started RackForms as a business, I decided to go after the particular niche of high-end form development. So basically application builders, complex forms, etc. And so because of that, my software is more expensive up front. It's $110. And you have to believe me, it sounds crazy, but I've actually found that when I've priced my software lower, I actually get fewer sales. Because when you're priced at like, say, $49, I've actually done that before, then people get the wrong impression of you. Because if you're just $49, now you're competing at this low end down here where you're not showing yourself off in the proper light. Like, it's the way Apple does business. Apple charges a premium for everything it does, but at least up until right now, I happily pay that premium for my iPad or for my iPod or for wherever else because I think it's worth it. And the price almost justifies your lust for it. I know it's a weird thing, but I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, where something costs more and you want it more, but it also shows you that you're getting something of higher quality. And that's what our price does. But, this is really important, not everybody wants to pay $110 for a piece of software. So in terms of the funnel, like, you start off here, hey, this is web form software. Oops, it's $110. It gets real skinny real quick. But we have a free version, funnel gets a little bit wider, and we have our cloud version. So we're running a special right now, $9.99 for the first 2 months, and then $20 a month after that. This significantly widens the funnel. And this has been a fantastic product for us. So you can just subscribe to RackForms. If you don't want to pay for it up front, you can pay less for it. Now, true, this does cost more in the long run, but it's also a much more convenient solution. We do everything for you. You're on a super fast server, whatever. I'm not here to sell RackForms. I'm just here to say that think about your business. What does your funnel look like? What are you doing to make that funnel as wide as possible? I think I've done a pretty darn good job of addressing concerns that a potential user might have by offering great products at great prices, but also a variety of great prices. Okay, so I'm going a little bit long here. Let's finish this up. So what is our first step then? We've kind of identified that I need about 100 users a month, per day, excuse me, in order to have a sustainable business that's actually growing. And let's actually divide that. A sustainable business probably be around 50 users per day, to where I can just get back up to a steady level of income. 100 users per day, I will be growing. So we know that. The other thing that we know is, for right now, you just have to take my word for it, I think my site does a pretty darn good job of presenting you with a great user experience, right? So you go onto my website, you know exactly what my software does. You have a good indication of the different feature levels, like the versions that you get. It does a good job, I think, of describing the feature set, etc. And by the way, just to really quickly kind of point that out here, let me actually, I'm going to keep this open here. Let me see if I can do, what am I looking for here? Sorry, I lost my train of thought just a little bit. I wanted to look at, yes, overview here. So I want to actually, sorry, I do want this. My apologies. So in terms of a user experience, I just want to quickly point out, look at your website. I don't know if this is good or bad. This is one of the reasons why I'm making these videos, is I'm trying to crowdsource some of this information. But when I look at my organic hits, so this is just looking at Google Analytics right here, and I see the number of people that come here, I see a bounce rate of 40.7%, which I think is actually not too bad. But I also see an average session duration of 3 minutes and 54 seconds. So the reason why I think this is pretty good is that people that search for me direct, actually not search for me direct, people that just type in RackForms.com in their web browser and just come to me direct, they actually have a higher bounce rate and a lower average session duration than people who found me through search. So what I take this as, these are the people that know about me already and are looking up documentation, or are doing some other type of operation where they're just looking up information on the site. They already know about RackForms. They actually have less stickiness. They're on the site less than people who are unaware of RackForms and who found me through natural search mechanisms. And I think that that is a hugely telling term. Now again, there's a little bit of ambiguity here. Maybe these people just searched for, as we saw in the Search Console, maybe they actually just searched for RackForms and they came on me that way. But I take this number as a good sign. That is a high quality website. And it's also a fast website. I do a lot of work to make sure the site loads fast. So like if you look at page timings right here, if you go into RackForms.com, you are not waiting for anything. Average page load time over the last month is 1.2 seconds. That's something I'm really proud of, etc. So I guess where I'm going with all this is that the next step then is going to be to try to advertise here. That's what a huge part of this video series is going to be about. But before you should even think about advertising, you should be thinking about that funnel. So what objections do users have to your potential product? And then B, look at the actual site. So if you're doing a web thing like I am, look at your site itself. Is your site fast? Is your site organized well? Does your site have a clean layout? Is your site, I don't know, responsive? You know, like my site is responsive right now. I'm not saying my site's perfect, but when I look at everything that I value in a website, I've tried to mimic that on my own website. And the reason why it's so important is because the next step now is advertising. If you don't think your site is good as a free place, as a free destination, like just typing in search and just going to it, why would you ever pay to draw people there? Your site has got to draw the sale out of users so you continue running your business. If you can't do that, then why would you ever pay to go to it? And that's a question I'm still asking myself, and I will continue to ask myself. And you should be asking yourself too, is my site good? Is my sales pitch good, etc.? Okay, so to close up then, I want to make this under 20 minutes. So it's gonna give me a lot of time, but let's do it quick. So AdWords. The next video is gonna go into some detail about AdWords, but the setup for next week is I have just paid Google $10 to set up an AdWords campaign. I am not new to AdWords. I have spent over the years probably $5,000 or $6,000 on AdWords. I've only paid $10 because I am cheap right now and I want to start small in the course of this video and possibly grow bigger or maybe even get smaller. what I've done is very simple. I have one campaign, it's called Starter. Within Starter, I have 2 ad groups, one for kind of like a general broad term web form builder, and then one for specifically developers, PHP web form builder. Each one of these guys has a pretty low default max cost per click, 76 cents. And within each one of these, I just have some basic ads. So my first ad group has ads that are targeted to web form builder. So you just type a generic search. You don't care about the language you're using. This is like the catch-all ad, but it's still targeted, right? The keywords I'm using here are very specifically for I've typed in web form software or web form builder, something like that. So it still relates to what I do, but it's very broad. The second class of ads that I have actually goes for people who are PHP developers. So I'm a PHP developer. I want something that builds PHP web forms. In my experience over the last 8 years, those are the 2 broad class of users that I have. People that are PHP developers and those who aren't PHP developers but who still need web forms. Again, do the same thing for your site. What is your product? What classes of users do you have? With AdWords, you really can't target demographics. At least I don't think you can. Maybe you can now. But you should really be thinking about what class of user do you have? What intent did that user have when they perform the search, such that if they click on your ad and Google decides to show your ad, you're going to be performing Google a service by giving them a high quality search result and then giving the user a high quality ad that they can click on. And this is mine. So think about your business. What is your broad overall business? What users do you cater to? Show ads that relate to that. And that's basically it. Like say, I paid $10. I should also mention, lastly, that I actually have one real quick hint is there's no easier way to throw money away than to advertise when nobody is effectively supposed to be looking at your site. I have found through Google Analytics and just my history of Google AdWords that the only time that makes sense to advertise is Monday through Friday, noon to 2 p.m. Every other time is a waste of money. I'm lucky because I know that from experience, but think about that as well. Don't just advertise 24 hours a day, and for the love of God, do not just advertise to the entire world. You are going to get horrible quality clicks that way. I'm very focused, Monday through Friday, noon to 2, and also just in the US for English speakers as well. So be very careful if you are going to follow along as we do this here, to be very careful about how you target your users. But anyway, I don't want to go too deep into the AdWords thing right now. That's going to be next week, at which point the hope is we will have a week's worth of ad impressions under our belt. Again, I put in $10 with a $5 a day budget, so I'm probably going to have to re-up at least at some point. As we'll talk about in the next episode, we'll see. Google loves to not show ads if you're not bidding enough. So we'll see what happens. But for now, that's our setup. Fingers crossed that we'll actually get some leads in from this, but we'll see you next week when we actually find out if we did or not.